Well, happy Monday. It's good to see you this morning. You probably didn't know if I would be on today because it is a holiday, but I'm not going anywhere and I'm here, and why not? It's a great way to start out the day. So, if you're joining me, I appreciate it. Thank you. If not, that's okay. We are actually in the last chapter of the book of Numbers. And so, we'll see. This may not take the whole time. I don't know. We'll just have to see how that goes. But thank you for joining me. I hope you had a great weekend. I had an interesting weekend. I did some work on my car. I'm not a car person, but I needed to work on my car, and so I did that. That's it's not what I normally do on the weekends. It's as a matter of fact, I normally don't even have a weekend, so it was really kind of a prodigious thing that it turned out that work on my car happened at the same time I had some available time. So I was really, really kind of happy to do that. So I hope you had a good weekend also. Let's see. Let me close out that and this. Yeah, it's just been absolutely beautiful for me, at least. I think what the high was supposed to be 73. I don't actually know if I measured what the high was yesterday, but it was supposed to be 73. And I think it was a little bit warmer than that. For me, it was just absolutely perfect. It was really, really wonderful. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. That is about it. We are in, well, actually, let me look here for birthdays. Yeah, we have no birthday today, so I'm going to close that out. Let's get into our study. Why not? This is Numbers chapter 36, and it is the last chapter of the book of Numbers. And it raises an interesting point, and let's just see where we go from here. Numbers chapter 36, the family heads of the clan of Gilead, son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, who were from the clans and the descendants of Joseph, came to speak before Moses and the leaders, the heads of the Israelite families. They said, "When the Lord commanded my Lord to give the land as an inheritance to the Israelites by lot, he ordered you to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. Now suppose they marry men from other Israelite tribes, then their inheritance will be taken out of our ancestral inheritance and added to that tribe that they marry into. And so part of the inheritance allotted to us will be taken away. And when the year of Jubilee for the Israelites come, their inheritance will be added to that of the other tribe into which they marry, and their property will be taken from the tribal inheritance of our ancestors." And so if you remember this story back a couple chapters, Zelophehad, what's the guy's name? Yeah, Zelophehad. He died, and so the inheritance went to his daughters. And so they're the ones that actually carry the lineage of the tribe. And if they marry outside of that tribe, then typically in a marriage, right, the man would inherit that inheritance. And so you could see that slowly but surely all of this inheritance could be taken away. And so they go to Moses and they say, "What are we going to do about this?" And so Moses says, "Well, let me think about this and talk to God." Verse 5, then at the Lord's command, Moses gave this order to the Israelites: "What the tribe of the descendants of Joseph is saying is right. This is what the Lord commands for Zelophehad's daughters. They may marry anyone they please, as long as they marry within their father's tribal clan. No inheritance in Israel is to pass from one tribe to another, for every Israelite shall keep the tribal inheritance of the ancestors. Every daughter who inherits the land in any Israelite tribe must marry someone in her father's tribal clan, so that every Israelite will possess the inheritance of the ancestors. No inheritance may pass from one tribe to another, for each Israelite tribe is to keep the land it inherits." So it is true. What the issue is absolutely true. If these women marry outside of their tribe, their inheritance would go to the other tribe. And Moses said, God says to Moses, you can't do that. The boundaries of the tribal lands must remain intact. They can't move around. So the way that Moses hears from God is that you can only marry, if you're a woman, you can only marry within your tribal. That's it. Now, I suppose it is possible that they could marry a man and the tribe, in that marriage relationship, the man would not inherit the tribe. He wouldn't inherit his wife's land if it's a cross-tribal thing. But for that apparently isn't going to work. Maybe most of the inheritance goes to the woman. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, this is the solution that God comes up with. And so basically, these women are marriage bound. They can only marry people within their tribe, which is fascinating. But better not fall in love. I mean, it raises so many questions. Like, what if she falls in love with somebody outside the tribe? Well, the chances of that happening are highly, highly, highly impossible. People didn't move around very much. They stayed in the same city or village their whole entire life. I mean, they rarely moved outside of their tribe. So the odds of this happening, unless they go on a journey, or if perhaps there's a city that's real close to another city that's across the tribal boundary, I guess that's a possibility. But for the most part, we're dealing with very, very fringe cases here. But I think that the solution that God tells Moses is correct. It's verse 10. So Zelophehad's daughters did as the Lord commanded Moses. Zelophehad's daughters, Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, married their cousins on their father's side. They married within the clans of the descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in their father's tribe and clan. These are the commands and regulations the Lord gave through Moses to the Israelites on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from the Jericho. And so the women did as was required of them, and they stayed within their tribal clan. Now, we don't have arranged marriages anymore, I don't think. There might be some cultural or religious groups in the United States, like maybe the Amish or something like that. I guess the Amish should probably be one of them, where, the Amish, for sure, you don't marry outside the Amish community. But I don't think. I don't really know much about the Amish. I know the basic things. I know that they have their own communities. They're highly communal. If they're building a house, everybody comes in and helps do the timber barn, the pole barn, or whatever. I do know that they have a thing called Rumspringa, where a man turns, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and he's encouraged to go and sow his wild oats, and then determine if he wants to stay within the Amish community or leave the Amish community, and no harm, no foul. And I think that's actually kind of a interesting thing, because I guess you don't want lasting resentment. Like, you had your chance. But the thing is that most people at that age, they're not nearly mature enough to understand what kind of that decision is. Anyway, other than that, I don't think we have arranged marriages, but they have been a part of history for a very, very long time, where a father of a son and a father of a daughter might come together and say, these two will marry when they grow up, and we're just going to make sure it happens. And since men, boys and girls are supposed to honor their father, and their father says, this is the person you must marry. And if you kind of grow up thinking that this is the person you're going to marry, and you don't know any difference, and the whole culture says that, then that's what you do. And so this is what they did in Israel. These daughters who get this inheritance, they have to marry within the tribe. They can't go outside the tribe. They can't split up the tribe. This whole idea of who to marry and where inheritances go and that sort of thing, it's really fascinating. The is it primogeniture? The firstborn son, typically, and this was at the time of Jesus, the firstborn son of a father would inherit the whole inheritance of the father, or the vast majority of the inheritance of the father, to try to keep the land together. You don't want to disperse the farm and then further divide up the farm in an agrarian community. You need to have that unit stay intact so that it can have more power, I guess you could say. You don't want to break apart the power into little subunits. And so the oldest son of the father would get the inheritance, and then it was also his responsibility to make sure nobody in his father's clan ever had any problems. He kind of became the tribal or the clan or the property owner inheritance of that, and then it would go to his son and his son, and then those people would be those sons with the mantle of leadership on that whole entire property would make sure that the whole clan and tribe stayed together. And this goes all the way back to the kings, even the monarchs of Europe. Typically, that rule passed down from son to son, because the more land and wealth there is, the more power you have, and you start splitting it apart, and you're diluting the power. But if you can keep it together, it can fight enemies, it can grow, it can keep the land intact. It's certainly a system that works. And the downside is that if you're the second son or the third son, you have to rely on the older brother, the eldest brother, to make sure that he's mature, that he handles the finances of the farm properly, that he looks out for those people in his tribe to make sure that nobody is being shafted or whatever. He needs to be honest, basically. You want a good, and it has been said, I don't know where it's been said, but that the best form of government, I mean, these are basically forms of government, is a benevolent monarch or a benevolent dictator. That on the one hand, you get all the benefits of keeping all the resources and the power together in one unit, which makes it more powerful against the enemies, and to grow the wealth of the estate. There's a huge benefit to that. But if it's a bad dictator or a bad monarch, then that person's going to unwisely distribute or manage the affairs of that community. But a benevolent dictator, someone who truly cares about everybody in the community, makes sure that everybody is well cared for, resolves disputes between people. I mean, someone who's benevolent and wise and just and has all the power. That is truly a very, very, very good way to rule. And we have that in Jesus. He is the king of the kingdom of God, and he is also a benevolent monarch. He cares for everybody. He's the perfect king. He's the perfect monarch. Monarchy, mono, as opposed to oligarchy, which is quite a small number or a small group. Anyway, so this passes down from tribe to tribe. The other thing that's really interesting is that by the time of Jesus, the tribes were set, but the northern tribes had been scattered and pretty much lost. Like how the lineage of the northern kingdoms, everybody was intermarrying. So how do you know which tribe you're from? You might have genetic material from multiple tribes. In the southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin, Um, the it is possible that you might be able to stay within your tribal boundaries, and so you might have a stronger tribal lineage, but not so much for the Northern Kingdom. In the Northern Kingdom, once they were conquered by the Assyrians, you kind of lose that sense of tribal identity, I guess you could say. The land goes away. You might say this land here once belonged to Zebulun, but since the lineage passes down through the people and the marriages and the bloodlines, and not necessarily location, because you might say, yeah, I'm living in the land of Zebulun, but you've been conquered by the Assyrians, and then the Babylonians, and eventually the Romans. The land belongs to them. It doesn't belong to anybody of Israel. It was kind of got dispersed, but you could still trace your lineage back to somebody. But it was multiple lineages. I mean, just imagine, there's probably been 100 generations since the time of when Israel crossed over the Jordan River to go to the Promised Land. And so how do you keep track of which lineage, and which lineage is more important than another lineage? It's just an interesting, identity of who you are by lineage. It becomes very, very hard as you intermarry outside of the tribe. Let me put it that way. That's probably the most interesting thing. Unless you choose, it's either through the male or the female that I'm going to track my lineage and say, this is my tribe. But by the time of Jesus, he's able to track his lineage back to David, both through his father and his mother. We know that. So he definitely is on the line of Judah, but there were probably a lot of people that were in the line of Judah. And so your identity as your tribal ancestry is one way to have an identity. Another identity is the land. And people need their identity. People want to know their history. Where did I come from? Who gave me birth, and who gave birth to that person? And what are our values, and where do we live, and what rules did we live by? And there's a sense of knowledge of that we as humans have. I was born in Phoenix. I still have a strong affinity, even though I would never go back to Phoenix. I shouldn't say never. There is a high likelihood I would not live in Phoenix. High likelihood, but not impossible. Not impossible. And I still have a strong identity with that topography. But I go back to Phoenix. When I grew up in Phoenix, it was like 1 million people. It's about the size that Tucson is today. Tucson and Pima County. That's about when I was growing in Phoenix. That's now it's 5 times as large. There's freeways, and there's multiple places to shop, and multiple venues of sports and entertainment and all that. I mean, it is quite an amazing city, and it's continuing to grow in leaps and bounds. And TSMC has a chip factory there, and they just bought another 100 and something acres to build another chip factory. I mean, it is a growing industrial mecca and powerhouse. Little Tucson is just, we're just a little tiny community south of Phoenix. We are dwarfed in comparison, even though we are larger than many, many, many other metropolitan areas throughout the United States, probably throughout the world. I guess you compare it to some of the other major cities. Anyway, but I do have a strong affinity to Phoenix, and I still go back to Phoenix periodically, and I believe it or not, I still go back to the church I grew up in. I go up to the neighborhood that I grew up in. I'll drive around. I went back to my 40th high school reunion that was delayed because of COVID, but I went and stayed at a hotel that was real close to a house that Jennifer and I bought, in the mid 80s. Walked by the house. I woke up in the morning from the hotel and walked down to the house just to look at it. And the neighbor came out and said, "Who are you? Why are you looking at this house?" I said, "Well, I used to live in that house. I owned it at one time. I just wanted to look at it." She goes, "Oh, yeah." So we talked, and it was kind of fun. The old neighborhoods still exist, and the people I sold the house to, he died, but she was still alive. She goes, "Let's wake her up. You can say hi." And it's like, I didn't know her. I don't go wake her up at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning and go look at the house. I said, but thank you for the offer. I appreciate it. Oh, she'd love to meet you. I was like, no, that's okay. Anyway, she probably had more questions like, why did you sell us that house? It was a beautiful house. We loved it. It was great. Yeah, I would have never, ever, never say never, ever. God had a plan for me. God has plans for you too. Don't ever say never, ever when you're in the kingdom of God, because God can just say, you know what? Here, let's try this. It's like, okay, God, I'm game if you are. I'll follow your lead. Let me put it that way. All right. So I think we'll end it there. It's a little bit early, but we're finishing up the book of Numbers. That is the last chapter. We'll get into Deuteronomy next. And I don't know how long it's going to go through Deuteronomy. And then, well, yeah, let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for this day. Thank you for watching over us, and keep us safe until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. Let me look at the people online. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate all of you very, very much. And we are going into Deuteronomy. We're going to stay in Deuteronomy for a while, and then I haven't quite figured out how to integrate. The whole church is doing this thing called the Red Letter Challenge. And did I bring the book home? I did, but it's down there and I have to pull up my earplugs. There's a book called the Red Letter Challenge, and we're going to do a 40-day journey through it. And it focuses on 5 kind of teachings of Jesus that we should consider doing in our life. And it should be a lot of fun. And I've heard that various groups are going to pause and do it. And other people might do it. And so I'm kind of excited about it. I think it's going to go really, really well. It's not mandated that you have to do it, but everybody else will be doing it. Somebody else will be talking about it. It'd be kind of fun. Anyway, I guess that's that. The other thing is that I should just point out, although it's not a big deal, but I'm going to be gone. A week from today, which is Monday the 26th, I will be gone, and I won't be doing a Bible study a week from today. And I should be back Tuesday morning, the 27th, my brother's birthday. There is a slight 5% possibility that something could happen and I may not make it back because of travel and all that sort of thing. But I should be back on the 27th, and then I'll be here all through February. And then I believe, yeah. And we'll just have to play it by ear. But for the next but a week from today, I'm going to be gone. In case I forget to tell you, that's on the docket. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I pray you have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.